Hello, everyone, and welcome to Living Overseas on a Dime. Today, we're going to be delving into our budget for April 2022 in the town of Puerto Escondido, Oaxaca, Mexico. Join us and see how much we spent. Now, the big one that we probably overpaid. So, our total for the month for Puerto Escondido. Our budget in Puerto Escondido is going to be broken down into 7 categories. The first one is restaurants, followed by groceries, miscellaneous, which includes all sorts of different things, toiletries, some other incidentals, medical, transport, activities, and cell phone use. And then in the end, we'll give you a total of those things, which is outside of the major expenses like rent. Okay, let's get started. So our first budget point is that of restaurants. Now, restaurants in Puerto Escondido, we spent a bit more than we did back in Sayulita, primarily because we found a couple of places that we really enjoyed. The one was the hummus Israeli place called El Sultan, I believe. And we really enjoyed that place a lot. They had great hummus and great falafels. But for restaurants overall, we also went to some local places for mole and whatnot. But we spent 4,030 Mexican over the entire month, which is 199 US or 250 Canadian. So we didn't eat out a ton, but we did eat out a fair bit more. It's about 2 to 3 times a week. But once again, we didn't eat at any of the fancier restaurants. The fanciest we got was El Sultan, where I think the most we spent was maybe 200 pesos for both of us. So, and that included drinks. So really, it wasn't exactly an expensive place. We didn't go to any of the bigger places. We went to El Cafecito, but that place also was relatively reasonable. Really, a lot of the restaurants in Puerto Escondido were relatively reasonable. But if you wanted to jump up in price pretty quickly, you could as well, and there was, I think, a fancy Argentina steakhouse, as well as some other kind of fancier pizza places you could go to. But really, I think as a budget destination restaurant-wise, Puerto Escondido was pretty good. Next point, groceries. Now, Cole likes to eat specific things, cheese, steak, whatnot. He's not humongous big eater when it comes to different cuisines. He'll try it sometimes, but he's a kid, so he has his definite favorites. And that way you can see that our grocery bill is kind of consistent. It was 10,315 Mexican pesos, 510 US dollars, or 645 Canadian. We did some shopping at the local market. Coffee we bought locally as well. The coffee in Oaxaca is very good. We also went a fair bit to the large supermarket there called Chedraui, which funny enough is the same chain that we went to in Bucerias. And yeah, it's a little bit higher price. That's where we got there was decent bread there in the bakery as well. But yeah, that kind of was one of the reasons why the groceries were at least on par with Sayulita in price. And it's something that we found, actually, the groceries throughout Mexico at these larger chains are pretty much the same. So yeah, like our budget was hovered around 645 for this month Canadian. So it's very similar. Miscellaneous. Now, our miscellaneous for this month was 3,450 Mexican, 170 US dollars, or 215 Canadian dollars. Now, I think that one, really, it's hard to say. There's toiletries, some cleaning stuff. I think we might have bought a couple of frying pans or something for the Airbnb we were in, because it was a little bit sparse on what they had. But you know what? And beer. Beer is kind of something we bought, once or twice a week. It wasn't a huge expense, but all those little things do add up. Even there was deodorant that we picked up there, which ends up costing a fair bit more. But you know what? You want to stay hygienic, so it's something you definitely need to stay on top of. The next was medical. We had no medical issues in Puerto Escondido, so it's no big surprise that I think all we bought was some loperamide for some little stomach issues that we had. And that was only 40 Mexican pesos, which is $2 or $2.50 Canadian. No doctor's visits, nothing like that. So you know what? It was all pretty good that month. Transport was our next category. Now we had to take the transport with the cab to the airport as well as from the airport. And then we did take some cabs in town. They were relatively cheap. I think they're only about 50 pesos. If you go farther out to La Punta and whatnot, it was a bit more, like 80 to 100, depending on the cab driver. But most of the cabbies I found were relatively honest, aside from the airport. That's kind of like Fleece Central no matter where you go. But in town, you know what, you could try and bargain a bit, but you maybe just get them down 10. Most in-town stuff was between 40 or 50, and then if it was night and you were out at La Punta, it'd be 100 or something. So something to give you an idea as to some of the taxi prices there. The next one is activities. We paid nothing, $0, 0 pesos for activities in that month. We mostly just went to the beach and walked. And you know what? Another problem was that Puerto Escondido was so hot that we were overheated by the time it hit the afternoon, so it didn't really work for doing much with that. Now I know some people with activities would be like, what are you doing? You're in a place like Puerto Escondido. How can you not do stuff? You know what though? We enjoyed the stuff that we did. I played guitar. Jenny was doing some painting. We played some board games. We had some good family nights together. It's not that we're not doing anything. Even we did some snorkeling together there because the water was quite clear, me and Cole. So it's not that we're not doing anything. It's just that we're not doing activities that cost a lot of money. And that's what we prefer to do. So if you prefer to do big money things, that's fine. But just make sure you work it into your budget if you're using our budget here as any sort of guideline. The next expenses line is our cell phones. And the cell phone expense was very similar to that in Sayulita because I think we kept the same package. It was 700 Mexican for the two of us, Mexican pesos, which is 35 US dollars and 44 Canadian dollars. I believe that was for a 2 or 3 gig package each. So, you know, it worked out fine. We only really messaged each other and WhatsApped and Facebooked, messaged for talking to each other. And the internet at our Airbnb was not great. It was quite sporadic. So, you know what, it really just depends. Luckily we still managed, but I know that some people had a lot of trouble and they just weren't able to do it and ended up using a lot of data. So take that into consideration. So our final total bill without rent for all of those incidentals, restaurants, groceries, miscellaneous, medical, transport, cell phone, came out to 19,385 Mexican dollars, which is 957 US, 1,212 Canadian. That's the total of everything without our rent. Now let's go into rent and whatnot. First is our health insurance. That stays consistent monthly for us. It's 182 US dollars a month for myself, my wife, and Cole, all three of us. And that medical insurance was with a $250,000 coverage per incident and with a $250 deductible. So that's just something we pay every month through Safety Wing, and so far it's been good. We have our storage back in Canada, which is 44 US dollars a month, or 63 Canadian a month, which we're starting to feel is a little bit stupid because, like, is anything that's in there all that important? Maybe. We'll definitely have to head back and deal with that sometime in the next couple of years. Now the big one that we probably overpaid in Puerto Escondido, not because Puerto Escondido has a lot of cheap options. They don't, especially with a 1-bedroom. There's a lot of studios and whatnot, but our place was a 1-bedroom with a kind of living room area that the bedroom was air conditioned, but we found out that the living room area was not, which made it almost unusable, and we just kind of spent all of our time in the bedroom because it was air conditioned. But that cost 717 US dollars, which is around $900 Canadian, which I don't know. It almost seemed like too much money for that place. There wasn't really much to it. It was nice enough and clean, and like a cleaning lady came in once a week to clean it up. But like it just got so hot. It was a difficult place to live. And by the end of the month, we were not happy to leave, but kind of relieved to be going somewhere else. So our total for the month for Puerto Escondido $1,900 US dollars or 2,390 Canadian dollars for the entire month, including rent and everything, really. Now, doesn't include airfare. So keep this in mind as when you want to start to plan your budget. Remember that we are quite frugal and that we live a lifestyle where we are trying to kind of live long term overseas, and we're not holidaying. So we eat a fair bit at home. We eat out some, but we spend a lot of our time together trying to do things that we enjoy. So I hope that this video today has been of help to you if you're planning to go to Puerto Escondido, Oaxaca in Mexico. It's a beautiful place, and you know what? Go for it. Try it out, and hopefully you'll have a good time there. Take care and happy travels.